30 Pieces of Silver by John Sung. Chapter 10. The Miracle. The place was covered by a pitch-black cloud, and the metals were screaming in horror. My uniform was drenched in sweat, and my hands were shaking like a scowling cat. Then the veil of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom, and the earth quaked, the rocks were split, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of saints who had fallen asleep were raised. Where's the man with the megaphone? Hiss. I turned my head to find out where the mysterious sound came from. It was my brother, Jack. "What are you doing up there?" I answered. "Mom's not going to be happy about this." Jack quickly glanced at the door, making sure that he and I were the only people in the house. He was dark-haired and bony, and his right hand was missing an index finger. He was struggling to detach the lock from the cabinet, looking for his favorite toy. "Come on, don't just watch me doing nasty work. Give me some help here," Jack grumbled. He looked at me as if he was a scavenger looking for a fresh carcass. I barked, frustrated. "We're leaving in 10 minutes. Come down and change your bloody clothes." My father's pristine Volkswagen Type 1 rumbled and made a unique chirping sound. It had a bit of a strange color, pinkish brown under the sun, and reddish brown in the shade. The sun was setting, spilling golden light on the sea. It was the moment we had all been waiting for. I looked at the sky and mumbled, "Just as I thought." Chapter 20. The Tide Has Turned. The bread was broken and torn into pieces. The scent attracted a cackle of hyenas, and the veil was thick enough to blur my vision. The skull and the torso cracked open like an egg, and the creature's intestines were red like ripened berries. The body was Simon's, and the weight of the burden overwhelmed me as the heavenly messenger laid down his life for us. The blindfold that obstructed my sight from civilization was removed. I remember the day we were rescued by a Kriegsmarine scout. It was a bright afternoon, and Jack and I were in the same boat. His face paint was glowing in the dark, and his hands were covered in blood and pieces of flesh. The soldier spoke. We are almost there. You're the sons of the captain, aren't you? Besides, what are your names?" "Jack," Jack answered as if he was waiting for a chance to speak. "Jack Merridew. I was the chief." "Nice spear you've got. And you, Rolf?" I muttered, hesitantly. "Rolf Merridew." Chapter 30. 30 Pieces of Silver. I was standing right next to him, sipping a tea made from the petals and buds of the rose. It was at a perfect temperature, neither hot nor cold. "Yes, I sold him for 30 pieces of silver." "What's wrong with that?" The pain on the right side of my heart became a burst of an unbearable laughter. Ha 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 ha. At last, I stopped. I was shivering. "Piggy?" That was murder. I remember my brother used to call me Ralphie when we were both 6. I moved to Manchester when I was 10 and went to a boarding school. But after the attack, I moved to my father's house back in Deutschland. My father told me that my brother stayed in Hamburg until he's 8, but soon after my mother disappeared, he insisted not to go to school. I haven't heard anything from my brother for years, but he's going to join us on the trip that will happen in the next few days. After the war and the incident that happened 3 years ago, we have faced an irreversible consequences that put millions of our people in jeopardy. That's why my father works for the government that saved millions of children's lives from plutonium and cares deeply about me and my brother. My mother once said not to trust my father, but I am sure that my father is a wise, earnest man.